So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just came out and it looks incredible. However, there's something wrong. You see, the reviews are all calling it a masterpiece. I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy and the game just looks really fun with seemingly endless content and a truly next-gen feel to it, but I don't want to play it. And that's not because it's bad or because I don't want to support the company who made it or anything like that. The reason is actually way more simple. I'd just rather play Valorant instead? This happens to me all the time, and I'd imagine I'm not the only one. A new game drops, you're excited to play it, maybe you even buy the game, but instead of actually playing it, you just go back to old games that you've already sunk in hundreds of hours into. So I'd like to figure out why that happens and how to fix it. Let's start with that first part. This is a pretty strange and almost backwards phenomenon, so why does it happen? After thinking for a bit about why I feel this way, I've come up with two recurring reasons that I do this. They're both sort of umbrella terms though, and a lot falls within them. The first one is comfort. Humans are naturally afraid of change. We like things to stay stable, predictable, and comfortable. It's why we get stressed out when we have to change jobs, when we have to move to a different place, or when a relationship doesn't work out and we have to go back into the dating scene. We know there's probably hope at the end of the tunnel, but it's that uncertainty, that inability to know what it's going to take to get to the end of that tunnel that makes the whole experience so stressful. In fact, because of this, a lot of times we'll choose to stay in a situation that isn't ideal solely to avoid that uncertainty. This feeling is almost one-to-one with how I feel when it comes to starting new games. See, games are just about having fun, right? It's not perfectly analogous with something like finding a new job because most of us have to work, and we do it for money, not for fun, but it's still surprisingly close. Let me give you an example. If your current job pays well, gives you all the benefits and vacation time you could ask for, and doesn't make you want to die, why would you ever leave? I mean, sure, you don't enjoy it, you're not excited to go to work every morning, but you're getting everything you need from this job, and there's absolutely no guarantee that you'll be lucky enough to find one like it again. It's for that reason that you simply don't leave at all. This idea is true for games to an even greater degree. If you're enjoying a game and getting what you want out of it, there's no real reason to stop playing it in favor of something else, right? I mean, why risk it? If playing Monster Hunter Rise has consistently given me my daily required dopamine, why would I bother with something that might not? This is a trap that I find myself falling into quite often, not just with Monster Hunter, but with any game I can sink thousands of hours into. It all boils down to this: I won't play a new game that I might enjoy when I can instead continue playing a game that I will. It's simply more comfortable to stick to what I know. Now, there is a second reason that I think goes hand in hand with comfort, and that is commitment. Okay, real quick, I need you to do something. Grab a controller. No, seriously, I know you have one within arm's reach, and if not, get up and grab one. You probably need to stretch anyway. And if you're watching this on your phone, just conjure a controller. Okay, you got it? Now count how many buttons are on it. I grabbed my PS5 controller since it's the one I've been using the most often lately, and it looks like there are about 17 depending on what you do or don't consider a button. Now, since you're watching a video essay about video games on YouTube, I'd imagine you probably don't have a lot of trouble discerning where each of these buttons are. For example, if I told you to hold this controller and press this button, you could probably do it in well under a second. However, I'd imagine there is a button that would take a little longer for you to locate and press, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. Here, I'll throw it up on screen. It's easy to take this ability that you have for granted, but there was a time where you didn't know what a single one of these buttons did. A time where you had to look down at the controller while playing a game just to figure out where they were. But now you can do it without thinking. It's just second nature to you. Your favorite games, those games like Valorant, Masterduel, and Final Fantasy XIV are all just like this. When I play Monster Hunter Rise, I don't have to learn anything. It takes me zero time and commitment to start enjoying the game because I already learned how to play it a long time ago. This isn't the case with a new game like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth though. To play it, I'd have to learn the combat, the mechanics, and how the more intricate systems of the game work. And to be abundantly clear, this isn't a bad thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a game trying to teach you how to play it. Equally, there's nothing wrong with a game being complex or having a bit more depth to it. Naturally though, this complexity means that those first few hours of the game are going to be spent learning, and if you've only got a few free hours to play games, you might not want to spend those free hours in a tutorial. Simply hopping on a quick match of Masterduel might be a little more tempting. It's your comfort with your current game and aversion to risk that makes you unwilling to commit the necessary time to a new game that you may or may not enjoy. That's why you can't play new games. So how do we fix this? Well, first I want to make one thing clear. This might not actually be a problem, but that's going to depend on who you are. Let me explain. If you're a business consultant running a startup on the side, you're working over 80 hours per week including weekends, and you've got about 2 weekly hours total where you can just sit down and play games, then yeah, maybe that time should be spent on Valorant. I say this because there's an inherent risk in starting a new game. It's certainly nothing major or life-altering, of course, but there's a chance you don't like the game, and that's fine, if you didn't just waste your only 2 hours this week on it. This is obviously an extreme example, but the reality is that whether or not you consider this a problem is going to come down to just how much you value that time you have to play games. Maybe you've got 10 hours a day, but you don't want to spend it on anything but League of Legends, and that's totally fine, if not a bit deranged. Now, assuming you do consider this a problem, let's go over the 3 solutions that I like to use to fix it. The first 2 are pretty simple, but the third redefined how I've been playing games for the past few years, and it's what I believe is the most likely to work. Number 1, the timer method. This method is really simple. Grab a timer, set it to 90 minutes or so, and force yourself to play this new game until the timer stops. This seems silly, right? It's like, oh, you can't play new games? Well, have you tried just playing them? But the idea here is that if you can force yourself through that initial learning or expositional period, you'll be able to enjoy the rest of the game without the use of a timer. The timer acts like a band-aid solution. You use it to start the game, and once you're into it, you don't need it anymore. Number 2 is the hype method. This takes a similar approach to the timer method where you're just trying to push through that initial learning period so that you can enjoy the rest of the game. You do this by playing the game on release, maybe even at midnight, with the idea being that the hype behind the game will propel you through that initial slow start, and by the time the hype wears off, you won't need it anymore since you already know how to play the game at this point. Now, method 3 is my personal favorite, and it's what I've been using for the past few years ever since I started having this problem. Just play Celeste. Or more broadly, play games like Celeste. Simple games that are easy to jump into. I've found that a lot of indie games do this, which is why a ton of games I've covered on this channel are indies, because those are pretty much all I play nowadays. Celeste has 3 actions. You can jump with B, dash with A, and climb with any of the shoulder buttons. That's all you need to beat the entire game. It's extremely simple, and because of this, you barely need to commit any time at all to learning the game. However, despite all of this, there's still the very real possibility that this method doesn't work. In fact, it's totally possible that none of these methods work for you, and that's okay. I've said this dozens of times before, but I really can't stress it enough. We play games because they're fun. Maybe they take your mind off of things, maybe they teach you something new and change your perspective, or maybe they just help you relax. If you're stuck in a cycle of playing the same games over and over, but you're still enjoying them, then honestly, I don't see anything wrong with that. If you want to, I hope you can find a way to play new games like I have, but if you don't, I think that's okay too. Anyway, check out this video on why you can't enjoy a certain type of game that's extremely popular, and press the funny red button below to help increase my self-worth.